In the darkest minds of a distant world, a single growl from an alien girl changed a human's fate forever. Humanity? Yeah. The chocolate melted slowly on Ray Caldwell's tongue, a rare luxury that he allowed himself after 12 grueling hours in the hellish depths of Vergen's mines. Down there where the air was thick with metallic dust and the temperature soared until sweat stung his eyes, a single bite of imported chocolate could feel like a reprieve from damnation itself. He leaned back against a cracked concrete curb, closing his eyes for a moment, savoring the sweet richness as it coated his mouth and erased, if only temporarily, the bitter tang of dust that seemed to permeate every breath, every sip of water, every thought. Chocolate on Vergen wasn't just expensive, it was extortionate. The mining company charged 5 times Earth prices for imported luxuries, knowing that the workers would pay anything for a scrap of comfort in this bleak outpost. Ray had resisted the temptation for months, pinching every credit he earned, but eventually he had caved. He told himself he needed the morale boost more than he needed to hoard another fraction of a ticket back to civilized space. 2 more months, he muttered to himself, rubbing the stiffness out of his shoulders as he tilted his head back to watch the suns of Vergen dip behind the jagged skyline of the mining settlement. 3 suns, each bleeding its last rays across the rust-colored dust, painting the ramshackle town in shades of fire and ash. The settlement sprawled out in every direction, a chaotic mess of corrugated metal, scavenged parts, and buildings stacked like drunken giants. It was a place for the desperate, the adventurous, and the fugitives, sometimes all 3 rolled into one. Ray counted himself in all those categories. 2 more months, he told himself again. 2 more months of breaking his back, of shoving drill charges into unstable veins of mineral, of waking every day with his body aching and his throat raw from dust. Then he would have enough credits for passage off this forsaken rock. He could start fresh somewhere clean, somewhere safe, somewhere that didn't reek of desperation and half-broken dreams. A prickle at the back of his neck snapped him out of his reverie, the kind that said you're being watched. Instinct sharpened his posture. His hand drifted casually toward the pulse pistol holstered at his hip. On Vergen, that was just common sense. Claim jumpers, thieves, and muggers weren't just possibilities. They were legitimate career paths. He turned slowly, scanning the street behind him. The settlement was quiet in the fading light shadows stretching long across the dirt street. And then he saw her. She stood in the shadow of a derelict cargo loader, half hidden, but impossible to miss. At first glance, she looked startlingly human, and then the differences struck him one by one. Electric blue hair framed her face in a cascade that caught the dimming sunlight. Atop her head, fox-like ears twitched with minute precision, as if tracking every sound around her. Her skin shimmered with a subtle azure hue that seemed almost liquid in the twilight, alive with an inner glow. And her outfit, Ray's breath caught, was a form-fitting pink jumpsuit that clung to her curves in a way that was both alien and tantalizingly familiar. For a moment, they simply stared at one another. Her eyes were large and luminous, fixed on him with an intensity that made his pulse stumble. Behind her, a long, fluffy blue tail swayed back and forth, the motion deliberate, full of layered meaning he couldn't decipher. Curiosity, amusement, hunger. Then, without warning, she tilted her head, dropped to all 4s, and began to crawl toward him with a predatory grace that made every hair on the back of his neck rise. Ray froze, chocolate forgotten in his hand. "What the?" he muttered, his voice breaking the silence. The alien girl bared her teeth in something that was halfway between a grin and a snarl. Her sharp little fangs glinted, and a low rumble built in her chest. "Grr," she purred, the sound rolling out in a vibration that seemed almost physical. Ray blinked, unsure if he was about to be mauled or courted. "Excuse me, did you just say grr?" She repeated it, this time more forcefully, her tail swishing behind her in what looked suspiciously like impatience. They stared at each other, locked in a standoff of profound cross-species miscommunication. Ray's mind scrambled for possible interpretations. Was this a threat display? Some kind of greeting? A mating ritual? His knowledge of alien customs was a patchwork of rumors. Don't make eye contact with Draxians. Never eat food offered by a Peleron, but none of them applied to an azure-skinned, fox-eared woman who was currently crouched like a predator, growling at him. He glanced down at the half-eaten chocolate bar in his hand. It was ridiculous, but what else did he have? With nothing better to offer, he slowly extended the chocolate toward her. Peace offering, he said weakly, as if the words could bridge the gap between species. The change was immediate. Her fierce expression melted into delight, her eyes lighting up like a sunrise. She rose gracefully to her feet, approaching with a new confidence that radiated through every movement. When she reached him, she extended delicate fingers that deliberately brushed against his calloused hand as she took the chocolate. "Thank you," she said in perfect English. Her voice was melodic, her accent strange but charming. Ray's jaw dropped. You speak English?" "Of course." She bit into the chocolate, her eyes closing, as if savoring the richest delicacy in the galaxy. Worth it. Definitely worth it. Worth what? Ray asked, still bewildered. The growling, what was that about? Her eyes sparkled with mischief as she tilted her head. "I was marking you." "Marking me as in?" His eyes widened. "As mine," she said simply, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "So the other girls know to stay away." Ray ran a hand through his dust-caked hair, torn between laughing and panicking. "I'm sorry, but did you just claim me like territory?" "Yes," she replied, nibbling another piece of chocolate. "It's a compliment." "I don't even know you," Ray said helplessly. "I know you," she countered. "I've seen you at the refinery. You're the human who fixed the pressure valves when they blew last week. Saved 3 workers." She eyed him openly. Brave, strong, attractive by human standards, I think. Heat rose to his cheeks despite the absurdity of it all. "That's flattering, I guess." "I'm Caridian," she continued, as if that explained everything. "We're direct." Clearly, Ray muttered, "Look, I appreciate the interest, but..." "You offered me food," she interrupted, gesturing at the chocolate bar. "In my culture, that means acceptance." Ray groaned, "Of course it does." She stepped closer, her scent washing over him, something like cinnamon mixed with ozone, both strange and intoxicating. Her tail swayed behind her like a living metronome, brushing the air in a rhythm that seemed to sync with his quickening heartbeat. "I'm not asking for your firstborn human," she teased. "Just dinner, tomorrow night." Ray knew he should say no. He had a plan: keep his head down, save credits, get off this rock. No complications. No alien women with fox ears and tails. But as he looked into her eyes, playful, intelligent, and daring, he felt his resolve weakening. One dinner he conceded, holding up a finger. "But no more growling at me in public." Her smile widened, showing off those sharp little teeth again. "I make no promises." Ray adjusted the collar of his cleanest shirt, which wasn't saying much. Even freshly laundered, the fabric carried the stubborn stains of red dust that never truly washed out. He felt ridiculous, like a child dressing up for a school recital, but he still did it because the coordinates the alien girl had sent him weighed heavily in his mind. He told himself he was only going out of curiosity, that there was no harm in sharing a meal, but his reflection in the cracked mirror told another story. The location turned out to be stranger than expected, a rooftop restaurant cobbled together from a converted cargo container perched precariously atop a 4-story tenement building. The entire structure looked like a stiff breeze could knock it down, yet strings of mismatched lights dangled across the space, casting a warm, uneven glow over salvaged tables and chairs. A central cooking pit hissed and crackled with flames, sending fragrant smoke into the evening air. "You made it," her voice carried easily over the rooftop. Ray turned, and for a moment he forgot to breathe. Gone was the pink jumpsuit from yesterday. In its place, she wore a flowing dress of iridescent fabric that shifted between shades of blue and violet with each movement. Her electric blue hair was decorated with tiny glittering clips that caught the light, turning her head into a constellation. She moved with that same predatory grace he remembered, but tonight it was tempered with elegance. "You clean up nice," he managed, suddenly self-conscious about his miner's attire. Her lips curled into a smile that was equal parts amusement and sincerity. "So do you. For a human who spends his days crawling through dirt, you look presentable." "Is that a compliment or an insult?" "Both," she replied lightly, her tail swishing playfully. It's more interesting that way. Ray followed her to a table near the edge of the rooftop. From there, the view stretched across the settlement, a sprawl of flickering neon signs in rusted metal structures. Above them, the three moons of Virgan rose slowly, casting everything in a silver-blue glow. For a moment, Ray felt like he had stumbled into a different world, something softer, almost magical, far removed from the grime and exhaustion of the mines. A server appeared, another alien with fox-like features, but with skin shaded in warm orange rather than azure. They placed mismatched glasses on the table, filled with a liquid that glowed faintly purple. "What is this?" Ray asked, sniffing cautiously. "Fermented nectar from the highlands," the girl explained. "Don't worry, it's compatible with human physiology. We checked." Ray raised an eyebrow. "Planning this for a while, were you?" Her ears twitched, a gesture he was beginning to recognize as embarrassment. "Perhaps." He took a tentative sip. The taste was complex, sweet like honey tart, like blackberries, and with a spicy afterburn that warmed his chest. "It's good." She smiled at his reaction, clearly pleased. They fell into conversation, the kind that felt effortless despite the vast gulf between their worlds. Ray told her about Earth, about the ocean he had grown up near, about how the waves smelled on a stormy day. He admitted he had left not out of ambition but desperation when the economy had collapsed and mining colonies promised opportunity. She listened intently, her large eyes reflecting the moons above. Her questions were sharp, curious, and revealed a mind that was more than just playful charm. She wanted to know everything: what Earth music sounded like, how human children learned what it felt like to look at a sky with only one sun. At last, Ray tilted his head. "Your turn. What brings a Caridian to this dust ball?" Her expression darkened, the playfulness fading. She glanced around the rooftop, ensuring no one was listening before leaning closer. "I'm hiding." Ray frowned. "From what?" "Not what. Who?" She took a long drink from her glass before continuing. "My betrothed." Ray felt something unexpected twist in his chest. "You're engaged." "Not by choice." Her tale, usually lively, stilled completely, a sign he was learning to read. "On my world, political marriages are common among the higher castes. My father arranged my bonding to Growl, a warlord from the Northern Territories. The marriage would secure a trade alliance." Ray leaned back, a bitter laugh escaping him. "And let me guess, this Growl isn't exactly a romantic." Her eyes flashed. "Growl is cruel. He's known for his collection of wives. 23 at last count. Most don't last long." She shuddered visibly. "I refused. My father gave me one night to reconsider. Instead, I took a transport ship and never looked back." Ray stared at her, the pieces clicking into place. The confidence, the intensity, the way she had marked him so boldly, it was all survival. She wasn't just playful, she was running for her life. "How long have you been running?" he asked quietly. 6 standard months, she replied. "I thought I was safe here. Virgan is insignificant. But yesterday," her voice faltered, "I saw one of his hunters in the marketplace." Ray's instincts sharpened. "You think they tracked you here?" She nodded, her fingers tightening around her glass. "That's why I marked you. Not just because you're attractive, though you are, but because I need protection. Humans have a reputation among my people. Unpredictable, resourceful, dangerous." Ray gave a humorless smile. "I'm just a miner." Her gaze cut into him. "No, you're more than that. I've watched you, the way you move, the way you scan rooms when you enter. The calluses on your trigger finger, they don't come from mining tools." He stiffened, exposed. "That was another life. One you may need to remember soon." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "If Krell's hunters find me, they won't care who gets hurt. They'll take me back. And anyone who helps me will be eliminated." The evening air grew colder. Rationally, Ray knew the smart move was to walk away. This wasn't his fight. He came here to escape his past, not to be dragged into someone else's nightmare. Yet when he looked into her eyes wide with fear, hidden beneath her brave facade, he knew he couldn't leave her. "Let me help you," he heard himself say. Her relief was immediate, her smile radiant. She reached across the table and took his hand, her skin warmer than his, almost feverish to the touch. "You will." "I've got a hideout," he said, surprising himself with how quickly the plan formed. A mining shaft that collapsed last year. Company abandoned it, but I found a way in. We can lay low, figure out the next move." Her gratitude was wordless. Instead, she leaned across the table and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was brief but searing, tasting of sweet nectar and something uniquely her. When she pulled back, her eyes had darkened to a deeper blue. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet," Ray muttered, though his heart was pounding. "We're not safe." "No," she agreed, her tail swishing with renewed energy. "But tonight, perhaps we can pretend we are." The invitation in her voice was unmistakable. Against his better judgment, against all his plans to leave this place and avoid attachments, Ray found himself smiling. "My quarters aren't much," he admitted, his voice rough. "I don't care about the accommodations," she said softly, standing and extending her hand. "Only the company." He took her hand, and together they slipped away from the rooftop into the silver-blue glow of Virgin's moons, unaware that the night would change everything. Ray woke to warmth. It was subtle at first, a faint pressure against his chest, a shift of breath tickling his collarbone. But then it anchored itself into awareness, and he opened his eyes. What he saw startled him so much that for a moment he thought he was still dreaming. Blue hair spilled like a waterfall across the pillow, strands glowing faintly in the morning light that filtered through the grimy window. Azure skin shimmered in delicate patterns as if it were painted with light itself. A pair of fox-like ears twitched ever so slightly, sensitive even in sleep. Mira. The events of the night came rushing back: rooftop dinner, her revelation about Krell, the fear in her eyes when she spoke of hunters, the impulsive kiss, and then what followed. The laughter, the awkwardness of learning each other's bodies, the way her tail had curled around his leg like a living chain, the shock of hearing her purr in the dark. Ray's lips twitched at the memory, a strange mixture of tenderness and disbelief. He had sworn to keep his distance, to avoid entanglements, and now here he was sharing his bed with a fugitive alien noblewoman whose people thought growling at someone was a form of courtship. As he stared at her, her voice cut through his thoughts. "You're thinking very loudly," she murmured, without opening her eyes. Ray jerked slightly. "Sorry," then he froze. "Wait, how did you know I was thinking?" Her eyes fluttered open, deeper blue than he remembered from last night. "Because I can feel it." She propped herself up on one elbow, letting the thin sheet slip down her shoulder, exposing glowing skin that made his throat go dry. Her fingers traced absent patterns across his chest. "Last night when we connected, something happened." Ray frowned. "What do you mean?" "Caridians are mildly telepathic," she explained, her tail swishing nervously under the sheet. "But only with our own kind. At least that's what I always believed." "You're saying," his voice was hoarse, "you can read my mind." "Not exactly." She shook her head. "It's not words, not clear thoughts, more like echoes, impressions. Right now you're concerned, curious," and her lips curved into a teasing smile. "Still attracted to me despite your worry." Ray groaned, covering his face with a hand. "Great. So my crush is now a broadcast." Her laugh was light musical, but then her expression grew serious again. "This isn't normal, Ray. Among my people, a bond this deep forms only between life mates, after years together. Never with another species, and never this quickly." He lowered his hand slowly. "So you're saying what we did last night created something permanent?" She nodded, ears folding back slightly in apprehension. "I should have warned you it was possible, but I didn't think humans aren't supposed to be compatible." Ray tried to lighten the mood with a crooked grin. "Well, I've always been exceptional." It worked. Her ears perked up, and she laughed softly, relief flickering in her eyes. "Indeed you are." But then she added quietly, "There's more. When we connected, I didn't just sense your emotions. I saw things, memories, knowledge, combat training, tactical assessments, weapon specifications. You were more than just military, weren't you?" Ray's jaw tightened. That part of his life was sealed away, locked under classified files and forgotten assignments. He rolled out of bed, pulling on his trousers as if physical distance could protect his secrets. "That's not something I can talk about," he said flatly. "You don't need to," she replied, her eyes holding his. "I already know. And now, so do I." The implications hit him like a mining drill. She hadn't just glimpsed his past, she had absorbed parts of it. His training, his instincts, pieces of what had made him a soldier. You're saying he began slowly, that you've taken on my military skills. Not completely, she admitted, but enough to help us, enough to fight back if Krell's hunters find us. She reached for him, her hand warm against his cheek. Your skills, my knowledge of Caridian physiology and culture, were stronger together. Ray turned his head away, conflicted. He had come to Vergen to bury his past, to live as just another faceless miner in a galaxy that didn't care who he used to be. And now, in less than 2 days, he was bonded to an alien who had pulled that past into the light again. His communicator buzzed on the table, startling them both. Ray snatched it up, the ID making his blood run cold. Commander Haskell, his former commanding officer. He hesitated, then answered. A holographic projection flickered to life, revealing a hard-faced man in his 50s, hair silver but cut sharp in military fashion. He wore the uniform of the Interstellar Mining Corporation's security division. Caldwell, Haskell's gravelly voice said, sizing him up. Mining suits you. You look like hell. Ray stiffened. Didn't expect to see you slumming in the outer colonies, sir. Cut the crap, son. We need to talk. In person. Haskell's eyes shifted to Mira, who had wrapped the sheet around herself, watching silently. Bring your blue friend. My office. 1 hour. The projection flickered out. Ray looked at Mira. Her tail was completely still, the Caridian equivalent of anxiety. He knows about me, she whispered. Looks that way. Ray strapped on his pulse pistol, his body already moving into old routines he thought he had forgotten. The question is, whose side is he on? They walked through the settlement in tense silence. Miners and drifters bustled around them, but Ray couldn't shake the feeling that eyes followed them everywhere. Mira stayed close, her tail brushing his leg, occasionally a small gesture of reassurance. You're nervous, she observed softly. Has nothing to do with nerves, Ray muttered, scanning alleys and rooftops. Haskell showing up is never good news. Last time I saw him, he was ordering my unit into a suicide mission. Yet you respect him, she said. Ray exhaled. He was right there with us, leading from the front. That counts for something. When they entered the mining administration building, the only structure on Vergen that wasn't made from salvage, Ray's instincts screamed at him. Security scanners hummed, guards lined the halls, cameras tracked their every step. He counted exits automatically, positioning himself to shield Mira. Old habits. Commander Haskell was waiting on the top floor, framed by panoramic windows that overlooked the mining pits. His back was turned as they entered, hands clasped behind him. Caldwell, he said without turning. And Ms. Kira, daughter of High Counselor Torin of the Northern Caridian Alliance. Quite a long way from your father's estates. Mira froze. How do you know who I am? Haskell finally turned, his weathered face impassive. That's my job. Knowing things, he gestured to 2 chairs. Sit. Ray remained standing, one hand hovering near his pistol. What do you want, Haskell? To keep you both alive, for starters. With a tap on his console, the windows darkened and the room sealed itself. Security systems hummed to life. A holographic display flickered into being, showing star charts, personnel files, and shipping manifests. For the past 18 months, Haskell said grimly, I've been tracking an illegal weapons operation. Plasma cannons, neural disruptors, planet cracker bombs. The kind of nastiness we swore we'd mothball after the Centauri conflict. Someone's been selling them to the highest bidders across 12 systems. He zoomed in on a particular set of transactions, including one warlord, Krell of the Southern Caridian territories. Mira hissed, her tail bristling. Krell has been expanding his territory for years. With those weapons, he could challenge the entire Northern Alliance. Exactly. Haskell nodded. But it gets worse. 3 weeks ago, we intercepted communications between Krell and the Interstellar Mining Corporation's executive board. They're not just selling him weapons, they're partnering with him, planning to overthrow the Northern Alliance and strip your people's resources bare. Ray felt Mira trembling beside him. He instinctively put an arm around her shoulders. Why are you telling us this? Ray demanded. What's your angle? Because I'm still a soldier, Haskell said, his gaze hard. Not a corporate stooge. I signed up to protect mining operations from raiders, not to facilitate genocide. He flicked another file open, surveillance footage of Ray and Mira walking back to his quarters last night. Our sensors detected something unusual, Haskell said. A neurological synchronization between you two. something we've never seen between different species. Mira's ears flattened against her head. You were monitoring us. Standard procedure for all non-humans on Vergen, Haskell replied evenly. He enlarged the scan data. What's not standard is this pattern. Human military intelligence would kill to understand how a Caridian female accessed the neural pathways of a special forces operative, and the Caridian directorate would be just as interested. Ray felt cold dread settle into his stomach. You're saying, he muttered, we're targets. For both sides. Smart boy, Haskell said. Krell wants her dead. Human intelligence wants your bond studied. The directorate wants you both. And the corporation wants you silenced. Ray's jaw clenched. Fantastic. So here's my proposition. Haskell leaned forward. I have a ship off the books, fast enough to get you to the Galactic Council outpost in the Proxima system. But in exchange, I need evidence. Evidence to take down the corporation's executive board and expose Krell's plans. He looked at Mira, then at Ray. That means the two of you working together. Your military skills, her abilities. You're the only ones who can get inside their secure systems. Ray and Mira exchanged glances. Through their bond, Ray felt her determination, her fear, and most of all, her trust. Ray turned back to Haskell. We'll do it. But after that, we go our own way. No tracking, no studying us, no using us as pawns. Haskell extended his hand. Deal. As Ray shook it, he felt Mira's tail curl protectively around his leg, her silent promise echoing through their bond. Whatever happened next, they were in it together. The elevator hummed softly as it carried Ray and Mira back down from Haskell's office. The encounter had left Ray with a sour taste, a mix of old loyalty and fresh distrust. Haskell was a bastard, no doubt about that, but he was an honest one, a man who played his cards close, but always from the front lines. That didn't mean Ray liked being maneuvered like a piece on a board. Beside him, Mira was quiet, her luminous eyes watching the shifting floors of the elevator readout. Through their bond, Ray felt her mind simmering with tension. Fear, yes, but also determination. She wasn't a damsel in need of saving. She was calculating, weighing options, already trying to predict Krell's next move. When they reached the ground floor, the oppressive air of Vergen's streets hit them like a wave. Dust blew in eddies through narrow alleys, carrying the metallic tang of the mines. People bustled past scavengers, workers, fugitives, faces etched with exhaustion and suspicion. Ray felt eyes tracking them, though he knew most were too consumed with their own survival to care about two more wanderers. Still, his hand stayed near his pistol. Old habits died hard. We can't trust him completely, Mira said at last as they pushed through the crowd. No, Ray agreed, but he's not wrong about the bigger picture. If Krell gets those weapons, my people will burn. Her voice was soft but steady. Not just my clan, the entire Northern Alliance. Every city, every village. Reduced to ash while the corporation swoops in to strip what's left. Ray studied her profile as they walked. The glow of the moons reflected in her hair, painting her in light and shadow. There was nobility in her bearing, even here in exile. She carried herself like someone born to responsibility, even as she ran from it. You really think this evidence will be enough to stop them? He asked. It's all we have, she said. My father won't believe rumors. Neither will the council. We need proof, data, something irrefutable. Ray sighed. So we're breaking into one of the most secure facilities on Vergen to steal from the same corporation that owns half the colony. A small smile tugged at her lips. That sounds like something a human would do. He chuckled despite himself. It was stupid. Unpredictable. She said, her tail brushing his leg lightly. That's why we survive. They spent the next hours preparing. Ray led Mira to his quarters, a cramped room carved into the side of an abandoned shaft. It wasn't much rusting bed frame, a table barely holding together, a crate that served as storage, but it was hidden off the company grid. Mira explored it with curiosity, running her fingers along the dusty walls. You live like this, she asked. Beats the barracks, Ray replied, pulling open the crate to reveal his hidden stash. Not much, but enough, a few pieces of old military gear he hadn't been able to let go of. A compact pulse rifle Smoke charges a scanner unit. Illegal to own on Vergen, but then again, so was half of what people carried here. Mira picked up the rifle, testing its weight with ease. Human weapons are so inelegant, she murmured. They get the job done, Ray said, taking it from her and checking the power cell. Through their bond, he felt her excitement pulse alongside his own. She wasn't afraid of what they were about to do. If anything, she was exhilarated. He envied that. For him, this felt like slipping back into chains he had fought hard to break into a soldier's role he thought he had left behind. "You're enjoying this too much," he muttered. "Caridian instincts," she said with a sly smile. "We were hunters long before we were nobles. Danger makes the blood sing." Great Ray sighed. "I just hope it doesn't get us killed." Haskell's intel was detailed, though Ray suspected the commander had left out more than he shared. According to the files, the corporation stored its most sensitive data in a server room buried 3 levels beneath the administration wing. Access required layered security codes, biometric scans, and constant patrols. "It'll take both of us," Ray admitted, as he studied the schematics spread across his table. "I can get us past the guards and systems, but the biometric locks. I can feel electronic pathways." Mira interrupted, closing her eyes for a moment, as if listening to some unheard rhythm. "They resonate like music. If I concentrate, I can follow the patterns and nudge them." Ray stared. "You can hack with your mind." "Not hack," she corrected, "but sense. Machines hum differently than living things. If I push sometimes, they respond." Ray let out a low whistle. "Remind me never to underestimate you." "Smart human," she teased. Night draped the settlement when they made their move. They slipped through service alleys cloaked in shadows, avoiding the main thoroughfares where patrols clustered. Mira moved with predatory grace, every step silent. Ray followed, senses sharpened, noting every angle, every possible ambush point. 3 guards patrolled the maintenance quarter ahead, 2 human, 1 Draxian. The latter was trouble. Draxians could smell intruders long before seeing them. Ray cursed under his breath. "We'll need a distraction." Mira's eyes glimmered. She pulled a small vial from her belt. "What's that?" Ray whispered. "Caridian pheromone extract." She grinned. "Drives Draxians mad. Not harmful, just overwhelming." Before Ray could object, she sprayed the contents into a nearby ventilation shaft. Within seconds, the Draxian convulsed with sneezes, his massive scaled body shuddering with each explosive sound. The 2 human guards rushed to help, distracted. Ray shook his head, suppressing a laugh. "You're dangerous." "I told you," she purred. They slipped, past, descending deeper into the complex until they reached the door Haskell had marked. A sleek security panel glowed beside it, demanding biometric confirmation. Ray pulled out Haskell's code key. "This should get us through the first layer, but the retinal scan—" "Let me," Mira said. She placed her palm against the panel, closing her eyes. Ray watched, skeptical, until the panel chirped and flashed green. The door slid open with a hiss. He blinked. "How?" "My sensitivity to energy fields," she said, eyes sparkling with pride. "Combined with your technical knowledge, we make a good team." Inside, the server room hummed with quiet menace. Towers of data cores glowed softly, their lights pulsing like artificial heartbeats. Holographic displays hovered in the air, filled with streams of encrypted information. Ray moved to the main terminal. Haskell said the weapons data would be in a segregated system. Look for anything tied to Project Prometheus. They worked side by side, Ray's fingers flying across the interface while Mira extended her senses into the circuitry, guiding him past firewalls he couldn't see. For 20 tense minutes, the hum of servers filled the silence, broken only by their quick exchanges. Here, Mira gasped at last. With a gesture, she pulled up a cluster of schematics. Weapon shipments, deployment schedules, technical specifications. Ray scanned the files, his stomach tightening. Planet cracker warheads. Enough to level entire cities. "It's worse than that," Mira whispered, pointing at the calibration notes. "The containment fields, they're misaligned." Ray leaned closer. His military training recognized the danger immediately. "These aren't just designed to destroy cities. They'll destabilize planetary crusts. Chain reactions. Entire continents collapsing." "Genocide," Mira breathed. Her ears flattened against her head. "Not just conquest. Extermination." Ray dug deeper into the files, his face hardening, as more evidence spilled across the displays. "Look. Deployment schedules. Every major population center in the Northern Alliance, including your father's capital." Mira's tail drooped, her usual vibrancy dimming with shock. "My entire species." Ray reached for her hand, gripping it tightly. "We won't let it happen." Their eyes met. Through their bond, Ray felt her fear transmute into determination. Something shifted between them, then deeper than attraction, deeper than survival. It was partnership. We copy everything, Ray said, firmly inserting a data crystal into the terminal. Not just for Haskell, for ourselves. As the files transferred, Mira stiffened. Someone's coming. Multiple footsteps. Ray drew his pistol. How many, E? 4. No 5, she whispered, her ears twitching. Heavy boots. Armed. Ray checked the download. 70%. We need more time. Mira's eyes glinted with mischief. Then I'll buy us some. Before Ray could stop her, she grabbed his shirt, pulled him into a fierce kiss, and whispered against his lips, for luck. Then she was gone, slipping out the door with her tail the last thing he saw before it slid shut. Through their bond, he felt her shift into predator mode, her consciousness drawing on his combat instincts even as she added her own. Ray turned back to the terminal, working furiously as the transfer bar inched toward completion. Sweat beaded on his forehead. This wasn't just about Mira anymore. This was about an entire people, an entire alliance standing on the edge of extinction. The terminal chimed. Download complete. Ray pocketed the data crystal pulse racing and moved toward the secondary exit Haskell had marked. Whatever chaos Mira was unleashing, he needed to be ready when she returned. Because one thing was now certain, their fates were bound together by choice and by something far stronger. The air in the service tunnels reeked of rust and ozone. Ray moved with the practiced silence of someone who had once lived in shadows, each step measured, each glance, calculating escape routes. The dim light panels flickered overhead, throwing uneven illumination across the corroded walls. Behind him, Mira followed close, her tail brushing occasionally against his leg, a silent tether that anchored them together. Through their bond, Ray could sense her focus sharpening. Her alien instincts fed into his soldier's mind, making the world around them feel hyper-real. He no longer saw the tunnel as a simple corridor. He saw vectors, ambush points, sound pockets where footsteps would echo differently. Together, they were more than just two fugitives. They were becoming something else. 3 guards ahead, Mira whispered, her ears twitching. 2 human, 1 Draxian. Ray paused, frowning. The Draxian's the problem. They'll smell us before they see us. I've got that handled. She grinned, pulling another vial from her belt. This one shimmered faintly in the dim light. Ray's eyes narrowed. What is that? Caridian pheromone extract. To Draxians, it's like being shoved into a field of pollen. Before Ray could protest, she uncapped it and spritzed a few drops into a nearby ventilation shaft. Seconds later, a muffled cho echoed down the tunnel. Then another. The massive Draxian guard erupted into a fit of violent sneezes, his scaled body convulsing. The 2 human guards stumbled back in confusion, trying to help their comrade. Subtle, Ray muttered, shaking his head. Effective, Mira countered, her tail swishing smugly. They slipped, past descending further until the tunnels opened into a wider maintenance corridor. Ahead, a reinforced bulkhead loomed, the back door to the administration complex's auxiliary hangar. According to Haskell's intel, that was where the off-the-books Corvette waited. Ray checked the crystal in his pocket, the weight of it heavier than any ore he had ever mined. Inside it was the truth, schematics, shipments, deployment orders, evidence of genocide on a galactic scale. If they made it off Vergen alive, this data could topple the corporation and stop Krell. If not, it would all end here. The clatter of boots echoed behind them. Damn it, Ray hissed. We've been made. Mira's ears flicked. 6, maybe 7, heavily armed. Ray pressed his palm against the bulkhead's control panel. The door stayed locked. Haskell's access code won't be enough. Can you? Already, Mira had her hand against the panel, eyes closed in concentration. Energy hummed faintly under her skin. I can feel the current. It's tangled like a knot. Give me a moment. The pounding of boots grew louder. Shouts in human and Draxian voices filled the tunnel behind them. Ray drew his pulse pistol and took cover beside the door. You've got 30 seconds. 20, she corrected, sweat beading on her forehead. The first shot sizzled down the corridor, plasma bolts sparking against the walls. Ray fired back, dropping one silhouette in the gloom. Mira's tail twitched with strain, her focus split. Now would be great, Ray shouted. The panel chirped. The bulkhead slid open with a hiss. Mira sagged against the frame. Told you, 20. Ray caught her by the arm and pulled her through, slamming the emergency override. The bulkhead sealed shut just as another barrage struck it, the metal glowing faintly under the assault. They didn't wait to see if it would hold. The hangar spread before them, cavernous and lit by harsh white strips. At its center sat the Corvette's sleek, angular, matte black plating absorbing the light. A ship built for speed and stealth, not bulk hauling. Haskell stood at the base of the loading ramp. Binoculars in one hand, rifle slung across his chest. "Took you long enough," he growled. "Get aboard. We've got company incoming." Ray and Mira sprinted across the hangar floor, the sound of distant alarms swelling. Security shutters began dropping over the main entrances. Through a high viewport, Ray glimpsed 3 security shuttles rising from the main landing bay, their engines glowing hot. "They know," Ray said, thrusting the crystal into Haskell's hand. "We've got proof. The weapons aren't just city killers. They're planet breakers. They're planning genocide." Haskell's weathered face hardened. Suspected as much. Profit margins didn't add up otherwise. "Move." The Corvette's engines roared to life as the 3 of them strapped into seats. Haskell threw switches with practiced speed, but when the ship lifted, it was Ray who slid into the co-pilot's chair. "Ever flown a Corvette before?" Haskell barked. "Twice," Ray said tightly. "Training sim and an extraction op on Centauri Prime." "Good enough. Take the stick." The ship jolted as Ray gripped the controls. His body remembered the motions, even if years had passed. The Corvette surged upward, breaking free of the hangar roof as plasma fire streaked past. "3 bogeys on intercept," Haskell called from the gunnery console. "They're locking weapons." Mira had unbuckled, standing between them. Her hand braced on both their shoulders. Her eyes glowed faintly, her ears twitching. "I can feel them," she whispered. "They're targeting systems. The energy pulses before lock on." Ray's heart kicked. Through their bond, her perceptions poured into him, alien sensitivity to energy fields merging with his pilot instincts. Suddenly, he knew where the shuttles would move, the exact moment their missiles would fire. "Hard port now," she called. Ray obeyed without hesitation, yanking the stick left. A missile whooshed past the space they'd occupied half a second earlier, detonating harmlessly behind. "Dive 30 degrees, roll, then climb," she ordered, her voice melodic, almost trance-like. Ray executed perfectly, his movements flowing as if the ship were an extension of his body. One of the shuttles overshot, crossing into Haskell's firing arc. The commander squeezed the trigger, and the rear cannons lit up. The shuttle erupted in flames, spiraling back toward the planet below. "How the hell are you doing this?" Haskell demanded, watching them weave through plasma fire like dancers. "It's our bond," Mira said, her eyes glowing brighter. "I see the patterns." Ray translates them into action. For 10 breathless minutes, they danced through Verigan's upper atmosphere. Fighters screamed toward them, but Ray always seemed one step ahead, twisting, rolling, threading impossible gaps between missile trails. Haskell's cannons barked, dropping another shuttle, then scoring a glancing hit on a fighter that spiraled out of control. Finally, the remaining ships broke off low on fuel and unwilling to follow them into space. The Corvette cleared the gravity well, stars blooming across the viewport. Setting course for the Proxima jump point, Haskell announced, his voice gruff but tinged with awe. He glanced at Ray. "Never seen flying like that, not even from you, Caldwell." Ray's knuckles were white on the controls. Sweat dripped down his temple, but he grinned despite it. "Wasn't just me." He turned to Mira, who swayed unsteadily. Her glow dimmed, her breath shallow. Ray leapt up, catching her before she could collapse. "Mira, I'm fine," she whispered, though her body trembled. That connection, it was more intense than I expected. Our minds completely synchronized. "Too synchronized," Ray muttered, easing her into a seat. He brushed damp hair from her forehead, his heart pounding with a fear he didn't want to admit. Haskell locked autopilot and leaned back. "You two need rest. We've got 6 hours until the jump point. I'll keep watch." Ray carried Mira to the small crew quarters, 2 narrow bunks, a washroom, and lockers. As he laid her down, she reached up, her fingers curling weakly around his wrist. "The bond," she murmured, her voice husky. "After what we just shared, I need..." He silenced her with a gentle touch against her lips. "Rest first. Talk later." But as he sat beside her, holding her hand while exhaustion claimed her, he felt the truth humming through their bond. She wasn't talking about words. The bond had pulled them closer than either of them had ever expected, closer than most Caridian mates experience after years. And Ray realized with both dread and wonder that he wasn't sure he could ever untangle himself from her now. The ship shuddered as it exited hyperspace. Ray blinked away the disorientation fingers tightening on the harness straps. Outside the viewport, the stars of the Proxima system glittered cold and sharp, framing the colossal bulk of Proxima Hub. The station looked like a hodgepodge of architectural eras stacked atop one another, gleaming new towers of alloy plating grafted onto ancient skeletal rings. Its spires bristled with docking arms, satellite dishes, and defense arrays. Hundreds of ships buzzed around it like insects around a hive, everything from freighters to luxury yachts. Mira leaned forward in her seat, her eyes wide. It's bigger than I imagined. Neutral zone hub. Haskell grunted from the cockpit. Anything worth smuggling, brokering, or double-dealing flows through here, which means half the people inside will try to rob you, seduce you, or recruit you into a war, Ray muttered, comforting, and adjusted their approach vector. They had made it through Vergan, through corporate hunters and missile volleys, but Ray's instincts screamed that the hardest part still lay ahead. Information was power, and they were carrying dynamite proof that could unravel corporate empires and topple warlords. That kind of truth painted a target on their backs. Your Galactic Council contact, Ray asked, eyeing Haskell. She really has the authority to stop this. Haskell's jaw tightened. Ambassador Trellis, former intelligence operative. Ruthless, smart. If anyone can push emergency protocols through the Council, it's her. Assuming we live long enough to hand her the evidence, Mira murmured. Her ears flicked, catching sounds even through the ship's hull. Ships in pursuit. Haskell swore. How the hell? Ray checked the scanners. 3 warships had entered the system hours earlier, bearing Southern Territory markings. Krell, Mira whispered. Her tail lashed once, then stilled the Caridian sign of fear barely contained. He's here. The corporation probably tipped him off after our escape, Ray said grimly. They need us silenced. Haskell's fingers flew across the console. We'll dock fast. Once we're in Council jurisdiction, even Krell won't dare fire openly. Unless he's already inside, Mira countered. Her gaze met Ray's, and through their bond, he felt the weight of her thought. They won't stop until one of us is dead. Inside Proxima Hub, the docking clamps seized their ship with a jolt. Lights along the airlock cycled from red to green, and the hum of atmospheric equalizers filled the narrow corridor. Ray checked his sidearm one last time, though station regulations meant he would have to keep it concealed. Haskell gave them a curt look. Stick close. And remember, the Council guards shoot first, ask questions later. The airlock opened. Noise crashed over them like a tidal wave. Proxima Hub was a cacophony of languages, species, and scents. Vendors shouted in guttural tongues, peddling everything from alien textiles to cybernetic implants. Neon lights painted the air in violent colors. A troupe of insectoid musicians rattled out a rhythm that clashed with a nearby holographic advertisement for combat stims. Ray's soldier instincts kicked in immediately. Every alien face was a potential threat. Every dark corner a possible ambush. His gaze swept constantly, cataloging exits, noting guard positions, watching for the twitch of a hand near a concealed weapon. Beside him, Mira pulled her cloak tighter around her, the hood shadowing her distinctive hair and ears. Yet even disguised, she drew stares, her aura of confidence, her fluid movements. Her tail, hidden beneath the cloak, brushed against Ray's calf. Through their bond, he felt her mixture of tension and exhilaration. Krell's hunters are here, she murmured. I can feel their energy signatures. 6 at least, spread around the diplomatic sector. Then we don't go near the main approaches, Ray said. We'll move through the service corridors, less crowded. And more dangerous, Haskell grunted. Perfect place for an ambush. Better us picking the battlefield than them. The plan. They paused in a shadowed alcove near the station's bustling market. Haskell checked his chronometer. Trellis is speaking at the Council chamber in less than 2 hours. We have that long to get her the crystal. After that, she leaves for Council space and our chance goes with her. Mira's ears twitched. Krell's hunters are concentrated near the chamber entrances. They'll spot us before we get close. Then we need a distraction, Ray said. Mira's smile was sharp, predatory. I'll be the distraction. Ray and Haskell said the same word at the same time, no. They're hunting me, Mira insisted. They'll abandon their posts if I show myself. You two can slip the evidence through while I lead them away. Ray's fists clenched. And when they corner you, you'll be outnumbered, outgunned. Not alone, she interrupted firmly, her eyes locking with his. We're bonded. You'll guide me through it. And when the time comes, you'll strike from behind. Haskell stroked his chin thoughtfully. It could work. Hunters will focus on her. Won't be watching their backs. Ray wanted to argue to forbid it, but through their bond, he felt her certainty. Not just confidence in herself, but in him and them. Fine, he said, at last, his voice low and dangerous. But you stay linked with me the whole time. Any sign of trouble, you abort? Understood. She gave him a playful salute. Yes, sir. The chase. The plan unfolded with terrifying precision. Mira cast aside her cloak in the middle of a busy concourse, her electric blue hair gleaming like a beacon under neon light. Gasps rippled through the crowd as her ears twitched and her azure skin caught the glow. Hunters spotted her instantly, their eyes narrowing with predatory recognition. Their one barked in guttural Caridian. Mira ran. Her movements were fluid, graceful, her tail streaming behind her as she slipped through the crowds. Through the bond, Ray guided her. Left turn, service corridor, 3 hunters trailing. She veered without hesitation, ducking into a maintenance passage. Behind her, armored boots pounded the floor. Plasma fire scorched the walls, civilians screaming as they scattered. Ray shadowed the chase from parallel corridors, staying unseen. Twice he struck silent takedowns. Pulse pistol shots muffled by sound suppressors. Bodies slumped into maintenance closets, leaving trails of confusion for those still following Mira. 4 left, Mira sent her breath ragged. They're faster than I thought. Keep moving. Toward the atrium, I'll cut them off. Disaster strike. Then like a hammer blow, a surge of anguish slammed into Ray through the bond. He staggered, clutching his chest. Mira, he gasped. Her mental voice trembled. Look at the screens. Ray's eyes darted to the nearest public holo display. News feeds blared footage of a planet's surface engulfed in fire. An agricultural colony, Kyria Minor. Or rather, what had been Kyria Minor. Now a smoldering crater spread across its crust fissures, tearing the land apart. The caption scrolled in multiple languages, Northern Alliance outpost, destroyed by unknown weapon. They've started, Mira whispered in his mind, grief and rage twisting together. The weapons? Ray's fists clenched. Stay focused, he urged. We can still stop them. But her control was slipping. Through the bond, her emotions lashed at him, raw grief, fury, despair. She stumbled, her hood falling back, exposing her face fully. Hunters surged closer, weapons raised. Mira, behind you, Ray shouted aloud as he sprinted. She whirled as the first plasma bolt grazed her shoulder. Pain shot through their bond, a sting that made Ray hiss as if it had struck him too. He drew his concealed pistol and fired, dropping one hunter with a precision headshot. Station security drones swarmed, alarms blaring. Civilians screamed and scattered. The hunters retreated into service tunnels, realizing they had drawn too much attention. Ray reached Mira and pulled her into his arms. Are you hurt? It's nothing, she gasped, though her skin had paled around the burn. Her tail twitched weakly. We need to find Haskell, the council chamber. Inside the council. They pushed through the chaos, avoiding patrols by anticipating them through the bond. At last, they reached the heart of the hub's central command, a massive chamber built for diplomacy, but now thrumming with crisis. Guards blocked their path. No unauthorized personnel, one said flatly. We have evidence, Ray snapped. Proof of genocide in progress. The guard sneered. Many claim such things. Then a familiar voice cut in. Let them through. Ambassador's orders. Haskell appeared dressed in a formal diplomatic aide's uniform. The guard stepped aside reluctantly. Inside the chamber was chaos. Dozens of species shouted in overlapping languages, their holographic displays flashing images of Kyria Minor's destruction. At the center stood Ambassador Trellis, tall and commanding, her silver-streaked hair framing a face carved by experience. The evidence is irrefutable, she declared as Ray and Mira approached. The Interstellar Mining Corporation, in collusion with Warlord Krell, has deployed illegal planet cracker weapons against civilian targets. Designed not merely to destroy cities, but to destabilize entire worlds. Mira pushed forward, her voice cutting through the din. Korea Minor is only the beginning. They plan to wipe out every major Northern Alliance world. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Trellis turned her sharp gaze, assessing the alien girl. You must be Counselor Torn's daughter. Mira bowed her head slightly. Have you reached him? Is my father safe? Communications are jammed in northern space, Trellis said grimly. No doubt Krell's doing. Then we act now? Mira insisted, her tail lashing. The schematics show where the remaining weapons are hidden. We can stop them before they fire. Ray stepped up beside her. I have the military training. She has the technical insight. Together we can coordinate with your fleet. Trellis studied them both, her expression unreadable. Commander Haskell mentioned your unusual connection. Is it true you can share knowledge telepathically? Yes, they answered in unison. Trellis gave a single decisive nod. Then you're exactly what we need. The fleet commanders are standing by, coordinating the battle. For the next 3 hours, Ray and Mira worked as one. Connected, their bond allowed them to process tactical data at impossible speeds. He saw fleet formations through her eyes. She grasped weapon schematics through his memories. Together, they directed strikes with surgical precision. One by one, 17 hidden platforms were located and neutralized before they could activate. Entire worlds were spared from destruction. When the last platform was secured, exhaustion crashed over them like a wave. Ray leaned against Mira, his forehead resting briefly against her hair. We did it. Not all of it, she whispered, grief still haunting her voice. Korea Minor is gone. I know, he murmured, holding her tighter, but we saved billions more. The council chamber slowly emptied, the storm of voices giving way to tired murmurs and the faint hum of cooling, hollow projectors. The air still buzzed with tension, but for the first time since Vergen Ray felt a flicker of hope. The evidence was out. The genocide had been exposed. Krell's plans were unraveling. Ambassador Trellis dismissed her aides and approached them, her expression both grave and respectful. The council owes you both a debt of gratitude. Without your intervention, billions would already be ash. Ray shifted uncomfortably. He was more used to battlefield commendations than political praise. Just did what needed doing. No, Trellis said firmly. You did what no one else could. Your connection allowed this alliance to act in time. It may yet save not just the Northern Alliance, but the stability of half the quadrant. Beside him, Mira bowed slightly, her tail flicking in a gesture of formality. And yet Korea Minor still burns. Trellis's gaze softened. The tragedy is undeniable, but you prevented a greater one. Your father will want to hear this from you directly. She handed Mira a small crystalline communicator, a secure channel. The council forced a narrow transmission corridor through the jamming fields. We've confirmed Counselor Torn is alive, though under siege. He's waiting. Mira's hands trembled as she activated the device. A flicker of static resolved into the weary but commanding face of her father. His eyes, so like hers, only older, sharper, lit up. Mira. Her composure cracked. Father. Ray stepped back, giving her space, though the bond carried every surge of her emotions straight into his chest. Relief, love, guilt, pride. It was almost overwhelming. I feared the worst, Torn said, voice heavy with both weariness and steel. Krell's hunters, I thought. I escaped, Mira said quickly, her words tumbling. And I found proof. Father, the corporation has allied with him. They mean to cleanse our worlds, to strip them after. We stopped most of the weapons, but Korea Minor. Her voice broke. Torn's jaw tightened, grief shadowing his features. The council has already briefed me. Your actions saved countless lives. And this human, his gaze shifted past her, locking onto Ray. Ray straightened instinctively, the soldier in him surfacing. Sir, this is the man you bonded with, Torn said, not a question, but a measured statement. Mira flushed, ears twitching. It was unexpected, but yes. For a long moment, Torn's expression was unreadable. Then slowly he inclined his head. A bond that crosses species, forged in the crucible of survival. Perhaps the galaxy needs more of such things. You have my gratitude, human, for protecting my daughter and my people. Ray exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. I'll do everything I can to keep her safe. And she will do the same for you, Torn said, his eyes flicking back to his daughter. I know her spirit. Guard it well, both of you. Our world depends on such unity now. The transmission cut, leaving silence in its wake. Mira wiped her eyes, then turned to Ray. He accepts you. Ray gave a lopsided smile. That's good. I was worried I'd have to wrestle him to earn his blessing. Her tail wrapped around his wrist, warm and firm. Don't joke. Among my people, his approval means everything. She hesitated, her azure skin darkening in a blush. Especially because what we share, it is considered marriage. Ray blinked. Marriage. Mira nodded, ears folding slightly in embarrassment. Life bond. Permanent, unbreakable. Caridians spend years forming it. We did so in days. Ray ran a hand through his hair, stunned. So when you growled at me back on Vergan, I was claiming you as potential mate, she admitted. I did not expect it to actually work. For a long moment, Ray stared at her, then burst out laughing. From a chocolate bar to marriage in under a week. That's got to be a record. Mira's smile grew sly and tender at once. Does it bother you being bound to me forever? Ray cupped her face gently, forcing her to meet his gaze. I think I've been heading toward you my whole life without realizing it. You're not a burden, Mira. You're the reason I'm still breathing. Her purr was soft, vibrating against his chest as she pressed her forehead to his. Their bond hummed with shared warmth, shared certainty. A new off. Haskell returned, his face more lined than before. He set a data pad on the table between them. You two aren't going back to Vergan. No kidding, Ray muttered. I mean, Haskell continued, the council wants to appoint you both as special envoys. Cultural liaisons between humanity and Caridians. Protected under council law. No one can touch you without sparking an interstellar incident. Ray frowned. Diplomats. That's not exactly my skill set. You've already done more diplomacy than half the council's roster, Haskell said gruffly. You united military tactics with alien tech and saved billions of lives. If that's not diplomacy, don't know what is. Mira tilted her head. It would give us protection, a chance to shape the peace instead of just running from war. Ray hesitated. He had planned to vanish into obscurity to live out his days mining until he could buy passage off planet. Yet here he was thrust into the spotlight of galactic politics, bonded to an alien noblewoman, carrying the fate of civilizations on his shoulders. You've got a choice, Haskell said, his gaze steady. Keep running, or step up and make sure what you fought for doesn't collapse the moment you turn your back. Ray looked at Mira. Through the bond, he felt her hope shimmering. She wanted to stop running to start building. He took her hand. If we do this, we do it together. Her tail tightened around his wrist. Always. Haskell grunted approval. Good. Then get some rest. Tomorrow we begin the work of rebuilding. Quiet moments. That night, Ray lay awake in the cramped quarters assigned to them. The chaos of the past days played in his mind like a reel of fire and shadow the mines. The chocolate Mira's first growl, the firefights, the kiss, the battles in the sky. Beside him, Mira shifted in her sleep, her tail coiled tightly around his leg, even in dreams. He studied her face in the dim light, the way her hair spilled across the pillow, the faint shimmer of her azure skin. She murmured, "Stop staring. It's creepy by Caridian standards." Ray chuckled. By human standards, it's romantic. Her eyes fluttered open, deep blue and mischievous. Strange species, says the woman who marked me with a growl in public. She purred, the sound low and teasing. It worked, didn't it? Ray leaned down, kissing her softly. Their bond thrummed with shared emotion, not just desire, but something deeper, steadier. Love. Looking ahead. Days later, as the council convened once more, Ray and Mira stood side by side at the dais. Holographic banners of dozens of species fluttered above, and murmurs rippled through the assembly. Ambassador Trellis raised her hand. I present to you Caldwell of Earth and Lady Mira of the Caridian Alliance, bonded by life and by circumstance. Their actions exposed treachery and prevented genocide. Their bond proves what many thought impossible, that humanity and Caridians are not just allies, but capable of deeper unity than we imagined. Ray shifted awkwardly, unused to ceremony. Mira, however, stepped forward with regal poise, her tail swaying in confidence. She addressed the council, her voice carrying, "What happened with Krell and the corporation is not just a crime against my people. It is a warning. When greed and tyranny combine, no species is safe. But when trust and courage unite, no threat is insurmountable. My bond with this human is living proof of that truth." Ray squeezed her hand and added, Humans have a saying, hope is the last thing to die. Maybe it's naive, but maybe that's why we survive where others fall, because we hope even when it looks hopeless. Silence hung for a heartbeat, then the chamber erupted in applause and cheers in a dozen alien gestures of approval. Epilogue, the life bond. Later, as they left the chamber, Mira leaned against him, exhaustion softened by joy. You spoke well, human. You too, he said, smiling. Think we made an impression? Her tail curled possessively around his wrist. Enough to terrify Krell, I hope. Ray kissed her temple. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. She purred softly, her voice almost a vow. We are life mates now, not just by culture, by choice. Ray nodded, his heart steady for the first time in years. Then let's build something worth protecting. Hand in hand, bound by love and by bond, they stepped into the uncertain light of a new future together.